Again, I will repeat this one here. So last I think a while ago I show you how to delete an OU that is being protected, and last time also I show you how to enable an account. Yeah. Now if you want to change also the password for the account, you simply go to reset password. Then when in the reset password, you can just create a new password for that account. Then kung imo ning na-check na siya, change the next logon mo tong gi-change ang password tungod ang pag-logon na to sa atong user. Okay. So now let's move on how to deal with group policy. We will watch this video. Then after watching this video, then you have your group policy. Uh, Asa mo to kung sharing ani? Sharing is this one. This is the one that we're going to share. Stop presenting.
Creating and managing group policy objects. I want to
Okay, so this is the um, video. Just going to have a full screen. And just confirm if you can see it and if you can hear it.
Welcome back to another video. In this video for Objective 6.1, Creating and Managing Group Policy Objects, I want to talk to you a little bit about the GPMC, or the Group Policy Management Console. Before we do that though, let's just take a look at Active Directory users and computers, because what I want to do is kind of show you the structure that we have here and explain it a little bit. So let me just go ahead and zoom in on that. So up here, we have our Contoso.com container, and that's really our domain, right? That holds, it's the main object. And then you'll notice the next type of container is built in, and then right below it is computers. Now, these two containers here differ a little bit in appearance than this one right here. And that's because they're containers and they're not organizational units. So when we look at organizational units, which are these guys right here, depicted by the little square or whatever you call it on the folder, we can actually apply a group policy onto OUs, but we cannot actually apply group policy onto containers. And we have like foreign security principals, managed service accounts, users, computers, and built-in. Those are created for us when we create the domain. There's no way that you can actually apply a group policy to those containers. Now, I have created an OU structure of Contoso, and then what I did was I created them by object type. So we have groups, servers, computers, all under the Contoso OU. And we do this because we want to be able to apply group policy in a hierarchical fashion. Let's go over to the GPMC now, and we'll open that up kind of side by side. And we'll notice that we've got domains and then Contoso. Let's move that over a little bit. And then underneath Contoso, we have all of our OU structure, our domain controllers, and then our group policy objects. So let's just take a look at this for a second here. So we'll notice here we have the contoso.com domain container, and right underneath it we have a default domain policy. Now, this is actually what we call a link. This links to the group policy object down here, and this is actually our inventory of all the group policy objects that have been created. And this is actually the GP, the group policy object, and this right here is just a link.
Okay. You will know also that it is a link and not the actual file. It is because of the arrow key. Now, behind the kana bitong naa sa iyang icon, nga murag script nga icon, you can see there an arrow key. So in Windows, if makakita gini mo na yung murag arrow key, it means it is just a shortcut, not the actual file. Para sa aning default domain policy o kaning default domain controller policy. So kung makakita mo nga na mga naay murag arrow key, meaning it is just a shortcut. Ang ingon niya nga the default is here or mao ni ang container nga dinhi ang actual nga file. Not this one is not the actual file but just a shortcut. The same goes also here. And if you notice also when you go to the group policy management or GPM, wala na tong built-in katong bitaw mga built-in mga users, although we have users here but this is not the built-in users when you create your domain controller. These are your OUs. As he said a while ago that you can only create a group policy for your OU but not on the built-in ng mga containers. Take note that OU is our same as object. This is the same as containers. Okay, containers. So danan lang siya.
Link to it. Now, down here we have domain controllers. And again, we have a link to it, to the default domain controllers policy out of the inventory of default domain controller policy, right? That rather group policy objects, and that's our default domain controller GPO. Now, if we take a look and we go and look side by side, we'll notice that the computers container is not in here. That's because you can't really do anything in group policy with a container. But we have our contoso.com container. We have our groups, or rather OU. We have our groups OU. We have our servers OU. We have our users OU. And then we have our domain controllers OU, and that's where our domain controllers actually sit. And we can see that the structure inside of Group Policy Management Console emulates what's in Active Directory, sans the actual containers or just basic folders that we can't do anything with. So now, let's go ahead and just take a look as to where these group policy objects actually are. And I'm just going to go down here and type in //contoso.com. And we're actually looking at our domain controller right now. This is our sysvol. There's our contoso.com container, or I guess folder.
Okay, this one is the illustration on where the actual file is. Kung asa man ang actual nga file. If you can see at the top, network, butang siyang connection system vol, this is where the actual file is. Mao ni ang imong naasa dapita ang file. Now, there we kani siya pwede ra kung dili ni siya i-show where you know the file is. But there's also a possibility that you want to change the policy, imong i-manual na nimong pag-change nimo, abrihon nimong file, induktoran nimong file, you can do that. Pero pwede na kung dili na siya show. But at least, this one shows where the location of the actual file is. Because here, katong imong active group policy nga window, in your group policy window, this is just actually this is the actual file, but the location is not reflected. Mao ni ang actual file, but this is not reflected. So there is a yang gibutang din this is where the actual file is. So mao ni yang butang din Okay lang po nga yang show.
Contoso.com container, or I guess folder. There is our policies, and we have two policies in here. Now, when the domain was created, these two policies actually got created. One is the default domain controller policy, and one is the default domain policy. And I'm just going to go into and edit the default domain policy. And if I go to the properties of this, we can see that the unique name or global unique ID is 31B2F. And there is our 31B2F.
Okay. That's what I meant earlier nga kung imuhang sudlon ang files, you can only see this unique because it's not like you can see the actual file nga tong pangani nga tong nga domain controller. So dili jud ingon nga kani mong makita kani kita na domain controller policy kani, but what you can see is kaning iyang pangan nga unique may makita nimo. And can you just imagine if you have more than one policy so niya imong tagnaw na asa to dapita. Ang imo pang buhaton is you need to go to the group policy management and you right click nimo ang policy, then makita nimo ang name. So why go all the trouble nga anion mo din niya dinhi. But anyway, this is also good that you can see these are the policies that you created, and you can also check nga mao ni siya. Maybe for security reason tanawon nimo nga you have four kabuok ng policy nga na-create mo din sa mong group policy management, and you want to check the actual policy that's happening or running in your server. Upat bug kabuok og lima kabuok, din tanawon mo nga unsa man ning ikalima basin og dili ni siya mao tong pwede nimo ma-delete. But what to delete? Di man kakibaw kay lima man nakita niya dili sa mong group policy kay upat ra man. So there must be one policy here na dili ikaw nagama, or what kakibaw rogue ba na siya, rogue policy. So you can check the policy that you're created here and its unique name, and katong wala na belong niya pwede ito nimo i-delete. That is for security reason. Okay na po ni siya yung ipakita niya for one way of protecting your policy. Okay na po.
There is the actual GP for the default domain policy for Contoso. And you'll notice that it's broken down into machine and user, and there's settings in here. We can't really directly edit them, but we can kind of peek in there and take a look at, what is actually configured and what the structure looks like. Generally, you don't manage anything from the sysvol. This is how all of your policies get replicated to all the domain controllers. But what I wanted to do is kind of show you the relevance of these folders in here. Now, going back, I'm just going to close that out. Going back here, if we open up, and I'm actually going to create a brand new GPO. We can do it in a number of different ways. When we create a GPO and link it, what we're actually doing is two steps. We're creating the GPO that's going to go into our group policy object inventory, and at the same time, we're linking it to the OU. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a brand new GPO, and I'm going to call this Contoso Settings. And I'm going to OK it. You're going to notice that what happened in that step was our Contoso Settings GPO got applied here, and that link also got created up here. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to edit it. Now let's take a look at what we have here. Okay, so when we look at actually editing a GPO, we have our basic structure up here of computer settings or user settings. Now, depending on what type of object you're trying to policy, whether it's a computer object or a user object, you will isolate your settings to one of these different nodes, if you would. Because here's what's going to happen. If a user is under the OU and you set a whole bunch of computer configuration, it doesn't matter that the user is under that OU and this GPO is applied to that OU. If they're not set for the user in the user configuration, it's not going to apply to that object. So the first thing that we have to understand is that we have two different types of settings. We have computer configuration and user configuration. User configuration will not apply to computers, and computer configuration will not apply to users. Now, as we look at the structure in here, whether you're under users or computers, we have policies and we have preferences. Policies are what we originally got in Windows 2000, and every version since Windows 2000, they've improved it. This is how we actually policy users and computers. We have a couple different things. We have software settings that allows us to apply software to remote computers or users, depending on where it's set. We have Windows settings. Those are like security settings, account settings. We have administrative templates, and these are where you actually get to control either the operating system or the user by setting, and we'll talk about the states, by setting the different template settings. Now, those policies are policied every 90 minutes in a process called background refresh. Background refresh is where the settings get reapplied to the computer, and not all of them, but 90% of them get reapplied to the computer. And this is how we policy a computer. Now, there's also preferences, and preferences are not really policied. They're more of suggested. When we log onto a computer or a computer starts up, they will be set, but they will not be background refreshed. They will only be done on the initial startup of the computer or the initial logon of the user. And this is why they're preferences. Now, why would we have preferences? Well, because lots of times we want to set the initial setting, but then allow the user to go ahead and set it. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. If we set the screensaver in a policy, that means that every time the computer starts up, or rather the user logs on, the timer for the screensaver will be 40 minutes. But let's say that you have people giving presentations where they might let this computer sit for 45 minutes, and you want to allow them to make it an hour, right? But if you make it an hour, you're going to affect everybody. Well, preferences, we can push down the preference of 45 minutes, and thus allowing them to set it to whatever they want. Whereas if we set it through a policy, one, every 90 minutes it would be refreshed and brought back to 45 minutes, and two, we would actually lock the user out because lots of times it grays out the setting. So this is kind of, group policy. We're going to look a lot more at it as we go through the objective. Hope you gained something out of this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, share my videos, enjoy my videos.
Okay, so in this setup, this is just an introduction of the group policy, where the group policy, how to access group policy, and for the actual group policy in creating group policy, we have another videos of that one, but I will just show it to you, the setup using our server, because this one is using 212 masoni 2012 sorry 2012 nga server, although parehas na sila og content mamaora gamay rig mga changes for security lang. Then akong issue ninyo kay basig ganina giunsa niya pag-access sa group policy editor. or katong ganing group policy editor is na-access ni siya katong pag-edit nimo, di ba? Pag-edit nimo sa imong kaning kuntoso nga policy kay na kuntoso settings pag-edit niya. But giunsa ninyo pagsud sa GPM, katong GPM pa dili pa ang editor, katong GPM pa giunsa pagsulod. Okay. I will show you the hold on. Stop presenting entire screen. So this is how you're going to access the group policy in our server. Okay, where is our server? Input keyboard. Here, this is your dashboard. When you open the server manager dashboard, kani may makita ninyo. Now, you need to go to tools and go to group policy management. But in case you cannot access to group policy management, that is because you never add that one in your rules and features. So, pwede na po nga inyong i-double check to double check whether the group policy is already installed in your server. Just go to add rules. Just click next. Hantod makakita ka itong policy, group policy. Sa features, kung wala na siya na check, imo na siyang i-check for group policy. So the GPM kinanglan na install din siya in order for you to use. Again, to check if that features is already added kanilang, then just click next. Next lang ka. Next. Then to sa features, nag-abot mo sa features, you can see the group policy installed. Once it is installed or imong na-installed na, uh, to access that one, you can just go here, tools, then group policy. In the group policy, as what we see in the video, ingon siya nga there will be OUs nga na din nakita. For example, in the test locales, so makita nimo ang imong OUs nimo. Now, previously, let's say let's go to Active Directory and users. In the Active Directory, wait lang ha, kay para ginihinay pa siya. Okay, here in the Active Directory, these are the OUs that we created. Doon na siya murag lain nga symbol from the built-in or katong mga default nga mga containers. So different na siya. Um, you learned already that these OU are the OUs or the containers that can be applied or that can a policy can be applied. So pwede na ito ni apply ng policy and niya. So to go there, you just need to go to tools, then under tools, you can have group policy. So we have this one, group policy. In the group policy, now iyang gi-emphasize dito that kaning mga nga ni shortcuts ako sure naging gisulti ninyo kanin these are the shortcuts, and I also told you nga uh, if you're going to look for the actual location of the file, it's actually here. So every time you create a policy, manhi siya mabutang, ani siya mabutang dinhi. So for example, kani siya ani dinhi dapita na group domain policy. This one also na dinhi. But if you want to know the actual file or unsay naa niya, you just double click on that one. The permission for this one folder are inconsistent with the Active Directory. Okay. So makita nimo nga naa siya din ha mao nga file. If you can have also like edit siya, then you can see also the policies and niya. Okay. Now, if you want to know where the file is, pwede ra gyapon using just slash slash, then go to your domain name. Nung mato ka sa run, then slash slash your domain name. So mga nakagran, mga nakadili kani. This is the test.local. This is our domain name kani siya. So when you go there, makakita ka tong dunay duha ka book folder. Now, if you notice on the duha ka book folder, doon na siya icon nga murag inganig forma, meaning it is in network. Na siya sa network. Basta makakita gani kay ngani nga folder sa Windows, meaning it is a network folder. Makita po mo din sa imong address nimo, it is in network and it is test local. So here, na dinhi again, this is just a shortcut. Basta makakita mo ingani, this is not the actual file. This is just a shortcut. The shortcut, we have this, we have policies. Then in the policies, we have two, because in our group of policies here, or group policy objects, we have two. Kanin siya. Now, again, pwede rin kong dili mo ani. Pwede kong dili na siya, but gi-show man niya, ako lang pong ikaw na unsay ang importansya ni niya. For security purposes, one, pwede na siya makuha na to. As I said earlier, nga you declared only two policies here and imo din nakita ka nga dunay tulo ka buok policy or more than the policy objects that you have here in the GPM. So pwede nimo nga dilito nimo nang wala din ha, dili akip sa imong ginama nga policy. So kung unsaon yung pakibaw nga mao ni siya, you need to check kung unsa ni nga palisihan ni siya. So just go to we have here just go to uh, the name of the policy. So edit also mo to yung properties. Where's the properties here? Oh, it's only edit. Maybe because wala tanabot dili siya consistent. But anyway, when you go to the status lang sa natin na makita niya din na settings. Tara lang. Alin lang sa details na lang. You just go to details because that one is server 2012. So just go to details and you can see the unique name. So the unique name must be the same nga na din nagsugod kag 31B. So kanang 31B it is consistent nga na din. So dili nimo pwede na diliton. You go to another one, then details kani 6A. So kana. So kung makita kag daylain, pwede nimo na diliton. Because it's not wala na gamit. Next, giingon niya is that when you create the group policy, when you create a group policy, make sure kung asa ka dapita. I think it is not being emphasized niya nga where you are going to create the policy. So kinahanglan nga you need to click and right click din usa ka mogama og policy. So GPO. So create ka og policy na niya or group policy, or we have here new organizational unit, but we're not going to create a new organizational unit but a policy. So make sure nga asan mo ibutang ang policy, uh, anhi ka dapita, kung ani ka dapita nga butangan nimo policy, ani po mo i-right click, then you just create the policy for there. Next meeting, I will show you on how to create policy. Unya, doon ay sample nga policy. There are a lot of policies na magama na tag sample, then policy nga unsay itong gamon nga policy unsay buhaton nato. For now, just going to orient ourselves unsa na siya. Now in the group policy ana niya, if you're going to edit ana niya, you will notice nga you will have two objects. Ang duha ka objects ana niya kani gitawag og computer o users. Now for every policy, there are two objects nga kinanglan nimo ibutangan og policy. It's either a computer or a hardware. When say computer, pwede po mo ma-refer nimo og kanang hardware. Actually, pwede printer na siya, pwede magamit nimo. But here, pwede ra po og kanang computer. So you can have the computer nga pwede nimo gamaan og policy or the user itself. Di ba dunay explanation na ganina nga there's a difference between this folder nga policy and this preference. Now the preferences is when preferences is mora mura ra og kanang kintahay mao ni initial nga mudagan sa imong computer, or if you are referring to user, mao ni initial nga mudagan sa imong policy sa imong user. It doesn't mean nga dili pwede mautro sa user itself, or it doesn't mean ang computer dili mautro itself. So pwede siya, mo siya initial preference settings. Now in the policy, kung naa ka dinhi sa policy, it means nga kani siya dili ni pwede mautro, not unless you are going to change it from here. Kani dinhi dapita, ani ka mo change. So panilitan, ani sa software settings na to, kung mag-install kintahay or ani lang ta sa Windows settings. In the Windows settings daghan sa mga policy. Patan aning shutdown, aning startup nimo, unsa may buhaton sa ining startup o aning shutdown. Okay, nag-start up sa computer or nag-shut down sa computer. Now, in here also, in our policy here for nasa Windows, you have here script log on and shut down. So kani siya inig log on ug shutdown didto to sa ato tang idako na. Um, if you notice, do na pod siya dinhi log on, do na pod siya dinhi dapita start up, di ba? Start up, shutdown, startup and shutdown. We have here script log on and log off because this one is a machine, so off og down gud siya kani log in og log off. Now if you notice here, start up og shutdown, pwede ka mag-create og script para niya. So kani siya meaning dili pwede mautro sa user because it is not under the preference, under ni siya sa policy. Meaning, if you put here a script, di ba naka-observe mo tong nakaabot ba mo sa laboratory last time diri sa Mater Dei nga iniglag-in ninyo, mulagin mo sa inyong pangan. So actually, gamit to siya group policy. Gigamitan to siya group policy sa network. Mao tong katong ugwa mo na rehistro inyong username ninyo or sa din na dili mo makasulod sa network. So gigamitan to siya group policy or dunay gipadagan nga program nga mao'y paunahon nimo og dagan, mao ni magamit ka og group policy. Ani siya, ani ka mo agi sa log, if it is a computer, start up and shut down. If it is the user itself, kung butangan nimo nga hello sa butangan nimo nga script din ha, kung every time nga mo login ang user, so that is the script ani belong sa user. So anything nga gusto nimo sa imong machine, you will go to the computers. Anything that will go to the users, anhi ka sa user. Pero, 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 make sure kung asa na siya nga policy nga gibutang nimo. Now, take note nga kani siya kay batan ani ka dinhi. Ani ka dinhi gibutang nimo sa admin. So it is intended para sa admin. Ani admin nga uyu. Kung ani kani kay naman siya sa default man domain controllers, so sa atong domain controllers. Kung mga nakag sa admin, it is intended only for admin. Tanawa lang ninyo atong ibalik ha. Tanawa lang ninyo dinyo. Uh, this is an OU. Kani, never mind this one because this is not an OU but this is where our group policy located. So the files. Kani di bang kani silang tulo di ba OU na sila? Domain controllers, we have MDC on kani. Now, kani siya dinhi, this is ang iyang mura og pinaka head nga palisiya kani sila tanan affected kaning naa dinhi sa mga domain kay namon siya sa root, while kani siya is only intended for domain ra siya nga palisiya kani. So when you create a policy intended for MDC admin, ani ka dinhi magama, make sure nga you click here and you create a policy here, ani ka magama dinhi og palisiya ani niya. Same goes as this one ingana. But it doesn't matter kay mo create na siya dinhi, mo butang na siya dinhi sa imong ginama nga palisiya. But take note nga nganong man sir nga nganong ato mang specify asa ta dapita nga OU, because in every OU it has its own computer and users. Not unless kung ang imong OU nimo usa ra ka buok, sila ra tanan. So pwede ra nga imo rang ana nga specify nimo ani ra tanan. But if in case daghan kay OU, so imong specify nga asa ka nga group policy. Okay? So imong specify ana niya, then you create the group policy, then ani pod. Then I think that's it for now. I just going to emphasize katong para sa inyong assignment or our prelim, prelim. Ako lang i-emphasize para katong uban nga wa kasulod ganina. Sa atong prelim, you are advised to set up a server. Kung mag-set up mo server, in your server, you need to create a snapshot of your server. Ang inyong i-submit nga snapshot is this snapshot kani because I want to know nga unsay pangan sa iyong domain controller. There is an instruction there that your domain controller will have your last name then dot local. So kani kay test dot local man ni, it should be name dot local. When you create a snapshot, dili ko gusto nga kanira inyong snapshot ani nga portion. What I want, if possible, kung ang entire window ninyo may inyong mahimo as snapshot, pwede. If kanira dinhi nga portion anira dapita hanto dinhi, okay lang ko. But not only this portion, dili pwede. Then kani dapita, ma-show nimo ang imong IP address. The next one is you need to show the IP address of your server. Although it display here the IP address of the server, pero akong gusto kani siya nga IP address nga makita nga settings. Just wait for a while. Kani akong gusto nga makita nga i-submit ninyo in your how would you like to specify path may have not operate. Okay. So, pwede rag kani makita ninyo ang IP address niya kanira. Pwede ra siya and the IP server. Because this one is just that dili man niya ang administrator man siguro nga rights ani niya. Anyway, so kung inyong i-display ninyo kani sa kani siya pwede ra makita kog IP address o niya ang DNS niya pwede ra ko makita ani niya or katong sa network settings yun niya mismo. Okay? Next is sunod is you will go to the client and create a snapshot, illustrating that your client is connected to your server. Unsaon man, we have the client here, kani client. So the client, in your client, just you go to network settings, then in the network settings, just right click on this one, then pwede ra mo sa itong status lang para largo. In the status, then just click details. In the details, you can see this. Kung makita ninyo, then just create a snapshot of this one. No need na to go to properties, right-click the properties. Pwede ra ka mga anak ka din na og right-click nimo, then just click status, then details para maklaro. Then you can see the anyway I will know nga mao ni among IP address, this is the gateway that you're using, and this is the DNS or and so on and so forth. Now this one the important here is kaning DNS niya nga it will have a reference to your server and the IP address that you are using. And I will know nga unsa ni siya nga klase nga connection sa TCP/IP. Are you using static or dynamic? So makita din yes, meaning this is dynamic. So mo na yung ipakita sunod. The next one is for you to be able to establish a connection between your server and your client. So manhi mo sa command, then ping, I want you 192.168.80.250 ang server. So inig-ping, makakita ko dinig reply nga ingani. Now, sir, what if wala siya ning reply ni siya nga kani walay reply nga ingani sir, dili siya connected. Kung mga na siya time out, o niya pag set up, pagkita niyo dinhi sa inyong adapter kani dinhi, pagkita niyo dinhi nga naani siya kay details na naani siya unya dinhi dapita um, time out siya time out dili unreachable. If it is unreachable, meaning you're not connected to your server. Kung time out lang siya, it doesn't mean nga dili ka connected, meaning gi-refuse ka sa server or ang imuhang ang imuhang client ming refuse. So all you need to do is go to firewall, tanawan yung firewall kung naka-enable ba tong printer, uh, allow apps kani firewalls. Then pangita atong naay printer kanang naay atong dakuon para maklaro. Basta kay naka-check siya tanan. Sa man to? Naka-check siya. Kaning file and printer sharing. So kinanglan naka-check na siya tanan kani para mo gana tong imuhang inigping nimo. If this one is not check, so dunay tendency nga dili ka pwede makaping. But anyway, it doesn't mean nga dili ka connected. So kanus mo ko kay browser nga dili siya connected sa akong server if it is unreachable. Unreachable ang display ani niya. Ngani ba ngani na to 3-1. Kung mga na siya unreachable, kani unreachable, meaning waya mo'y ngani nga IP, unreachable siya. Kung mga na siya time out, it doesn't mean nga dili nga waya mo ni siya nga number. It means nga igura siya gi-deny. Kung unreachable, meaning wala gyud ka connect. So all you need to do is imyoha ring kopyaon ni siya. On how to do that, on sa pagkopya ninyo, you can use snip, kani snipping tools. You can use Snip Sketch kani nandindot ni siya nga application sa built-in sa Windows. You have kani imo nga naon ra, then specified ana dapita, then that's it. Okay? So kana, then makita ninyo. Then submit it to me. That's it for now. Kana. Then next meeting we will continue on group policy. We will create a policy. Ari sa ta mag-agi sa startup. At least atong tanawon atong policy ang nag-apply na to sa atong client o sa atong server in startup. Okay, that's it. That's all for now. Everyone, see you on next meeting. Don't forget to submit kay 6 days pa. Kwan po to siya, dugay pa kayo ito. Mga, akong gibutang nito 1 week. Siyaro naman po 1 week, dili ta maka-create or maka-human ani niya. Okay? So, thank you everyone for coming and see you next time. Okay, that's it. Atong kwan. So, see you next time, everyone. This is DC. Ignore. This is sagot ni siya. SA101. Ganina is wala to. 29 lang kanila.
Bye, sir.
Okay, bye everyone. Thank you for coming. Wala pa mali ako na kuan